Today is another request from Jessie. Today we're going to tackle this story on Utica Bottling Works, which has a lot of twists and turns. So let's get started on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. Browsing around the internet, there's nothing really written up about this place at all. In fact, I only found one forum where someone had said that they found this bottle and was wondering if anyone had any information on it. And this was written almost 20 years ago, and it doesn't look like he got a response. So I headed to the newspapers, and it never shows up in the paper. So I headed to Google Books, and I did find a few hits in there. This first one is dated 1914. So I went looking through the city directories, and I couldn't find it. Then I went back and I noticed there's an E for East Utica Bottle Works. And then I found it. It doesn't tell me a name though, just an address of 1119 Bleecker. Google Maps takes me here. This corner store is 1129 and we're looking for 1119, so either it's at this corner and the number's changed, or it's the empty lot maybe next door. But 1914 isn't the earliest year that I found for this company. Searching back in the directories, I was able to find the earliest year was 1909. None of them tell me who is running the company though. Now this story had me running back and forth through the records, so I don't really know in what order I ended up with all this information, so I'm just going to start putting everything in chronological order at this point. So now, 1909 is when East Bottling Works started, but I don't know for sure if it was called a different name before this. But this is all we have, so we're just going to start here. So let's skip back up to 1915, and there's still no name mentioned. The same with 1917, and then in 1918, we're in some sort of maybe transitional period because the company isn't listed under East Utica or under Utica. Not in 1919 either. I don't see Utica Bottle Works show up again until 1921 in this Google book. And in this Google book, it says that Utica Bottling Works was formed by Michael Rizzo, Michael Benedetto, George Rizzo, and Frank Robertaccio. I looked up the Rizzo brothers the year prior, and they were both listed as laborers. Frank Robertaccio was also a laborer, and Mike Benedetto was a milkman. So the clues I'm getting from this is that they don't look like they were already in this business. None of them look like they worked at East Utica Bottling Works. So in the clues that I've found so far, without finding any names associated with East Utica to confirm, I'm going to say that East Utica Bottling Company and this company are probably two completely different companies, which means that East Utica ends in 1917 and has nothing to do with our story. But I think that was helpful to know. And I guess that answers any questions about dates anyone might have for East Utica Bottling Company. So in the 1922 directory, we see it listed here with 2 out of the 4 guys listed. It says Rigo, but I'm sure that's supposed to say Rizzo, and Benedetto. I looked up what all the guys are doing at the time. The Rizzo brothers still show as laborers. And there's 2 Mike Benedettos in this directory, and the milkman is still there, but this Mike Benedetto shows that he's part of the partnership. And Frank still shows as a laborer, so this is confusing. But then I find this. This Google book, written the same year in 1922, says Utica Bottling Works was incorporated by a D. Zinex, M. Rizzo, and A. Merrill. This is just 1 year after it started, and it already has new peeps in there? Well, let's just keep going. So 1925, Utica Bottling Works. President is Frank Robertaccio. Secretary and treasurer is Mike Rizzo. Manufacturers of carbonated beverages on 502 Broad Street, which would have been here. Mike and Frank are appropriately listed in the directory this time, and I also noticed that some of Mike's relatives are working there too. 2 years later, in 1927, we see Utica listed in the directory with a Frank Zaccaroli listed here. But I checked the Rizzos and Mike is still listed as president and George is secretary treasurer. And there's a Salvatore there as well. Mike Benedetto is still there too. Frank Zaccaroli seems to be doing his own thing with his brother, so I'm not sure his tie into the company at this point. The following year, Zaccaroli is listed again. This time I see that he and his brother are listed under public accountants. So I guess that answers that. Let's skip to 1930. The only Rizzo listed at Utica at this point is Salvatore. So now what the heck happened? It still says Zaccaroli is in there. And I don't know until we get to the next year's directory in 1931. And Utica Bottling Works says C. Flint's Utica Bottling Works. So there he is, Anthony Flint. The shop is still at 502 Broad Street. Alright, so let's get all this straight. So let's skip a couple years to 1935, and it's still called Flint's Utica Bottling Works. But as you can see in the directory here, it skips to 1938, and that's actually the last directory that I get access to. So in 1938, instead of Flint's Utica Bottling Works, it just says Flint's Bottling Works. So without the directory, I lose the trail for Flint's company. I tried looking it up in the paper, but Flint nor his company shows up in the papers. There is one Google book that mentions Flint's in 1946. So, at this point, we reach the end of the trail. So, let's look at Jesse's beautiful bottle. Jesse tells me he's 14 and a bottle digger. So, what's interesting about this bottle is that I can't find another example of it online anywhere. I think that makes this a pretty rare bottle. This says, checks the thirst, along the shoulder here, and then it says Utica, New York. The bottom says Rizzo Brothers, which makes sense, but I never saw that the company was called Rizzo Brothers at any time. It's got a really nice textured, checkered, embossed pattern. This bottle has a cap as well, so this one must have had orange soda in it. It's a really great bottle. It says registered, which we know means that the company owned the bottle. So when you purchased the beverage, you were to return that bottle to the company so that they can wash it and reuse it. And a 30-ounce bottle makes this a pretty big soda bottle. I don't see any obvious dates on the bottle from the pictures, so I'm going to date this anywhere between 1921 and 1930. And that's all I've got for this one, you guys. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.